Welcome back to Iraqi Dinar News Update, and thank you for being here with me today. I'm genuinely glad you're taking the time to listen, because what we're discussing in this update goes beyond a routine news recap. There are moments in long, running financial stories where the atmosphere subtly changes, and experienced observers can feel that shift even before anything becomes visible to the broader public. If you followed developments related to Iraq and its currency for any length of time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a noticeable difference between background noise and meaningful movement, and today's discussion sits firmly in that second category. Before we go any further, I want to establish clarity and calm right from the start. Nothing in this update should be taken as financial, legal, or investment advice. I'm not telling you to buy, sell, exchange, or take action of any kind. My role here is to share information, analyze observable behavior, and help you understand how institutions typically operate so you can interpret events for yourself. There are no guarantees, no promises, and no timelines being pushed here. This is about understanding context, not creating urgency. Now let's talk honestly about the path that has brought many people to this point. The Iraqi Dinar discussion has spanned many years, and during that time, the community has been exposed to countless dates, supposed deadlines, and repeated claims of imminent outcomes. Sundays became a recurring theme, as did holidays, end of month windows, and other calendar-based expectations. Most of those dates passed without any visible confirmation for the general public, and that has understandably led to frustration, skepticism, and emotional fatigue. Those reactions are completely valid. When expectations are repeatedly raised and then unmet, people naturally protect themselves by becoming cautious or disengaged. What makes the current environment different is not that someone has selected another date on the calendar. What's different is behavior. In global finance, behavior matters far more than words. Institutions reveal their expectations not through public commentary but through preparation. And right now, there are growing indications that major banking institutions are adjusting their internal readiness earlier than many people anticipated. That distinction is critical. Banks do not act on excitement or speculation. They don't respond to social media conversations, and they don't reposition systems for entertainment. Banks are structured to manage risk, not chase rumors. When they allocate resources, adjust operational capacity, or increase internal preparedness, it's because their internal assessments suggest a meaningful probability of change. They move to avoid being caught unprepared, not to make headlines. It's important to be precise here. Observations of banks preparing earlier than expected do not mean a public event has already occurred. It does not mean anyone has missed something, and it certainly does not mean individuals should rush to take action. What it does suggest is that internal processes are becoming more active, and that is often the earliest visible signal of institutional expectation. Most people only ever see the public side of the financial system. They see exchange rates, announcements, news headlines, and official statements. But long before anything appears publicly, banks operate within a quieter internal environment where systems are tested, compliance procedures are reviewed, permissions are adjusted, and workflows are refined. This internal phase can last weeks or even months, and it's largely invisible unless you know what indicators to look for. That's the layer where movement is being observed now. There's a reason Sundays have historically received so much attention in currency discussions. Weekends offer lower transaction volumes and closed markets, which makes them convenient windows for system updates and structural changes. Many financial transitions have taken place during these periods for practical reasons. However, convenience is not a rule, it's a preference, and preferences change when conditions change. If institutions determine that waiting for a perfect calendar window increases operational risk or competitive disadvantage, they will adjust their timeline. Banks do not delay preparation simply to align with expectations held outside their walls. They prepare when probability justifies it. That's why early movement, when it occurs, deserves attention even if it doesn't align with previously assumed schedules. Another source of confusion in this space is the way the term revaluation is used. It has taken on many meanings depending on who is speaking. For some, it implies a dramatic overnight public shift. For others, it refers to gradual normalization or internal valuation adjustments. Within banking institutions, the term often relates to readiness to handle a potential change rather than the announcement of that change itself. These distinctions matter. When banks prepare, they are preparing for scenarios, not celebrating outcomes. This brings us back to Iraq itself, which remains the foundation of this entire discussion. Over the past decade, Iraq has undertaken extensive financial and institutional reforms. These efforts have included restructuring parts of the banking sector, improving regulatory compliance, expanding digital infrastructure, increasing transparency, and aligning more closely with international financial standards. None of this happens quickly, and much of it occurs without fanfare. But these are the steps that actually matter. While online discussions often focus on speculative outcomes, the real story has been Iraq's methodical rebuilding process. Structural reforms create the conditions for long-term stability. They are far more important than rumors because they provide the framework within which any currency system must operate. Without those foundations, no sustainable change is possible. When you combine Iraq's documented progress with the current global environment, the picture becomes more interesting. The global financial system is under pressure from inflation, high debt levels, geopolitical tension, and shifting economic alliances. In such an environment, economies with tangible resources reform momentum, and improving governance can attract renewed attention. That doesn't make them perfect, but it does make them relevant. Major banks are deeply aware of these macro trends. They model scenarios, evaluate risks, and position accordingly. They don't wait for certainty because certainty in finance usually only exists after events occur. Instead, they prepare based on probability. And at this moment, the probability of meaningful change related to Iraq appears higher than it has been in a long time, based on multiple converging factors rather than a single rumor. For those who have followed this story for many years, skepticism is understandable and even healthy. Questioning claims, demanding evidence, and maintaining perspective are all signs of critical thinking. However, it's important not to let past disappointments blind us to legitimate signals when they appear. Healthy skepticism asks questions. It doesn't automatically dismiss observable behavior simply because previous claims were inaccurate. One of the most common misunderstandings in financial narratives is the assumption that if something isn't publicly visible, it isn't happening at all. In reality, by the time the public sees an announcement or a policy shift, the decision-making and preparation behind it are often already complete. Public visibility marks the end of a process, not the beginning. Fear also plays a significant role during transitional periods like this. Some people worry about missing out. Others fear making mistakes. Some are hesitant to hope again after years of waiting. All of those emotions are human and valid, but fear should never be the driver of financial decisions. Legitimate financial developments do not require panic or rushed action. If urgency is being manufactured without clarity, that's a signal to slow down, not speed up. It's also worth noting that not all banks move at the same pace. Some institutions are more proactive, while others are more conservative. Movement within the system does not happen uniformly or simultaneously. When preparation begins at higher institutional levels, it often takes time before changes become visible at the local or retail level. That delay is normal and does not invalidate the underlying activity. Another important point is that global finance operates faster today than it did even a decade ago. Digital systems, interconnected markets, and real-time settlement capabilities allow decisions to be implemented quickly once they are finalized. That speed is precisely why early preparation is essential for institutions. Preparation signals intent and expectation, even when outcomes are not yet public. Trust has been damaged in this space over the years, largely due to exaggerated claims and misinformation. Rebuilding trust requires consistent honesty and transparency. That includes being clear about what is known and what remains uncertain. We can say with confidence that Iraq has made measurable reform progress. We can say that global conditions are shifting. We can observe institutional behavior. What we cannot responsibly claim are exact dates, rates, or outcomes. Uncertainty does not mean nothing is happening. It means a process is underway. Patience, in this context, is not passive. It is active awareness without panic. It is staying informed without becoming consumed. If you followed this story through years of ups and downs, you've already demonstrated patience. Don't abandon that strength now. If nothing were happening at all, there would be silence. No preparation, no positioning, no internal movement. The presence of measurable activity tells us the story is not dead. Even if its conclusion has not yet arrived, As we move forward, expect mixed messages. Some will be accurate, others won't. That's normal during transition periods. Your responsibility is not to believe everything or dismiss everything, but to observe patterns over time and weigh credibility carefully. This story was never about a single dramatic moment. It has always been about a country rebuilding and reintegrating into the global financial system after decades of disruption. When that kind of process reaches critical mass, change does begin to accelerate, but it still follows procedures and protocols. We may be closer to that point than ever before. That doesn't mean immediate transformation. It means the environment is shifting, and environments always change before outcomes do. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you found value in this update, support the Iraqi Dinar News Update channel in whatever way feels right to you. More importantly, protect your peace of mind, stay grounded, and remain informed. This is not a moment for panic, it's a moment for steadiness, awareness, and thoughtful observation. I'll see you in the next update.